In the ancient times, the gods, Indra, the king of the gods, Agni, the fire god, and Vayu, the wind god, were the most powerful beings in the universe. They ruled the heavens and the earth, and their powers were unmatched. They commanded the forces of nature and were revered by all beings. Their abilities to create, destroy, and sustain life made them feel invincible, and they were proud of their achievements. One day, the gods gathered in the heavenly realms, basking in their glory. They discussed among themselves the nature of their powers and accomplishments. Each god boasted of their abilities. Indra spoke of his dominion over the heavens and his leadership among the gods. Agni boasted of his ability to consume anything with his fiery power. Vayu proudly declared his control over the winds and the air, which he believed could move mountains. With each boast, the gods became more and more confident in their supremacy. But, as they continued their discussions, something extraordinary happened. The arrival of the Yaksha. As the gods were lost in their conversation, a mysterious being appeared before them, a Yaksha. The Yaksha was not an ordinary being. He was neither a god nor a mortal, but a divine figure who emanated an aura of supreme power and knowledge. He stood before the gods in all his glory, his presence radiating an indescribable sense of wonder and awe. The gods were immediately struck by the Yaksha's presence. His form was both radiant and elusive, and his very existence seemed to transcend the physical realm. His appearance was neither entirely human nor divine, and he exuded a sense of profound mystery. The gods, who were accustomed to being the most powerful beings in the universe, felt a sense of awe and uncertainty in the face of this enigmatic figure. Indra, ever the leader, approached the Yaksha with confidence. He asked, "Who are you, and why have you come to the realms of the gods? What is your purpose here?" The Yaksha remained silent for a moment, and then he spoke in a voice that resonated like thunder across the heavens. "I am here to teach you a lesson. You may be mighty, but your powers are not your own. They are the gifts of a higher source. You are merely the instruments of a greater force." The challenge, the test of powers. The gods were puzzled by the Yaksha's words. They had never been challenged in such a way before. Indra, in particular, was filled with pride and anger at the implication that their powers were not of their own making. "How can this be?" Indra demanded. "We are the rulers of the universe, the controllers of the elements. We have earned our powers through our actions. Who dares to question our supremacy?" The Yaksha smiled and then set forth a challenge. He said, "If you believe you are the source of your own power, then prove it. Let us see if you can accomplish something without the aid of the supreme source from which your powers arise." To demonstrate, the Yaksha summoned a great mountain before the gods. The mountain stood tall and unyielding, a symbol of immovable strength. The Yaksha then said, "Let each of you try to move this mountain with your powers. Show me that your strength is your own." The gods' attempts. Each of the gods attempted to move the mountain, relying on their divine abilities. Indra raised his thunderbolt, the mighty Vajra, and hurled it at the mountain with all his might. The thunderbolt struck the mountain with a deafening sound, but the mountain did not budge. Indra's strength had no effect. Agni, the fire god, summoned a fierce blaze, intending to burn the mountain into dust. He unleashed his flames, but the mountain remained unscathed, as though it were impervious to his fire. Vayu gathered all the winds in the universe and blew with all his force, intending to blow the mountain away. But despite his mighty gusts, the mountain remained unmoved, as if it were anchored in place by some invisible force. The gods were baffled. No matter what they did, the mountain would not move. They realized that their efforts, despite their divine powers, were useless in the face of this great test. Their powers, which had once seemed so invincible, had no effect on the mountain. The revelation, the source of power. Seeing the gods defeated and humbled, the Yaksha spoke again, his voice gentle but firm. Do you see now? You may have strength, fire, and wind at your disposal, but these powers come from a higher source. They are not yours to command on your own. The supreme force, Brahman, is the source of all power in the universe. Without Brahman, none of your abilities would exist. You are merely instruments of the divine will, and your powers are expressions of the greater cosmic order. At this moment, the gods began to understand the true nature of their powers. They realized that their pride and arrogance had blinded them to the truth. All their abilities, whether the thunderbolt of Indra, the fire of Agni, or the wind of Vayu, were nothing without the supreme source, Brahman. Indra, deeply humbled, bowed before the Yaksha and said, "We were blind to the truth. We believed our powers came from our own might, but now we see that we are but instruments in the hands of a higher force. All power, all strength, all life, comes from Brahman." The Yaksha nodded, and his form began to shimmer and dissolve into the air. Before he disappeared completely, he spoke one final time. "Remember this always. It is Brahman who is the true source of all strength, all power, and all creation. Recognize your humility in the face of the infinite, and let that knowledge guide you in your actions." The moral of the story: the illusion of self-sufficiency. The gods were reminded that their powers, no matter how vast, were not their own. They were simply vessels through which the divine will of Brahman flowed. This is a reminder for all beings that no matter how powerful they become, their abilities and success are always ultimately rooted in the divine force that sustains the universe. Humility before the Supreme. The story teaches the importance of humility. Even the most powerful beings in the universe must recognize that their strength comes from a higher source. Pride and arrogance only blind the individual to the truth of their interconnectedness with the universe and the Supreme Being. Brahman as the ultimate source. Brahman is the source of all creation, and all powers, whether physical, mental, or spiritual, emanate from it. Understanding this divine origin leads to true wisdom and spiritual enlightenment. The role of the divine in life. The gods' realization that their power is granted by Brahman reflects the deep truth that all beings, whether human or divine, are part of the larger cosmic order. Acknowledging this divine connection leads to inner peace and spiritual growth. The story of the Yaksha in the Kena Upanishad is a powerful reminder of the supremacy of Brahman, the source of all power and existence. Through the humility of the gods in the face of the Yaksha's teachings, we learn that true wisdom comes from recognizing our place in the universe and surrendering our ego to the divine will. Ultimately, all power, all creation, and all life flow from the supreme source, Brahman, and it is only through humility and reverence for this truth that we can achieve true understanding and spiritual liberation.